Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. It's Mr. Imes coming at you with this week's social skills lesson. So, hope you guys all had a good week. I really do miss you guys, and I cannot wait for all this to be over. But while we are trying to go through this, let's try to make the best we can of it and continue to learn some of these really important tools to help us be successful. So this week is the climbing out lesson. It's the lesson with a lot of people call it the crab pot lesson. Hopefully you are looking at the email that I sent you and you're seeing the visual of these crabs that are in a pot getting ready to be cooked. Now, this is one of my favorite lessons to teach because I actually saw this in person. This scenario of the crab pot situation. So anyway, it's one of my favorite ones to teach. The big thing that I want you to come away with this week is really I want you to be aware of the positive and negative ways that people can influence you. That's really the big thing. Friends, family member, people that you hang out with. I want you to really be aware that they can truly impact your life in a really positive way or in a really negative way. So first off, I want to talk about why is it difficult for crabs to get out of a pot. So this is a real life scenario. And I saw this on the Oregon coast about 10 years ago or so. So walking on the Oregon coast, and I was with my wife, and we were on this beach, and there was a pier going out, a big long dock. And at the end of the dock, there was this guy and two kids. The kids were running around playing, and the guy was pulling up some of these boxes out of the ocean. And anyway, my wife and I walked down there, and at the end of the dock, there's this big bucket, and every once in a while, the guy there at the end would drop something in the bucket, and we got down to the end, and there were like, I don't know, probably 15 or 20 different crabs floating around in there, and the bucket was filled up to the top with water. You could see sometimes the crabs are floating to the top and going to the bottom, and they're all just kind of swimming around in there. And the bucket doesn't have a lid on it. And I asked the guy about, aren't you afraid that the crabs are going to crawl out? And he said, well, no, haven't you ever heard about how crabs react when they're in a bucket like this? They hold on to each other, they keep each other in, and there's no need for a lid. And so I sat there and watched for about 5 minutes and watched these crabs trying to crawl out, and as one was almost out, one would come up with its claw and clamp onto a leg and pull him back down and under. And anyway, that was my first experience to see that. It's a real life phenomenon where typically when you cook crabs, the best way to cook a crab is you get it while it's alive, right? You get a couple crabs and they're alive, and you heat up some water and you cook them that way so they're good and fresh. And as the crabs are trying to climb out of this water, if you have more than one, they hold each other in, which is crazy. Instead of helping each other escape, they hold each other in. And so it's a great analogy for sometimes our life when we are trying to get out of bad situations such as boiling water. We can have people that surround us that tend to instead of helping us get out of a bad situation, they tend to pull us in and make it really difficult for us to leave. So that's why it's difficult for crabs to get out of the pot, and for us to get out of tough situations. Sometimes it's the people that we're surrounded around make it very difficult to climb out. People can be very crab-like in that scenario, where you gotta think that the saying of misery loves company. When you're around people that are not being super successful, they typically don't want to see the people that they're around climb out and better themselves. If they're miserable, they want the people around them to be miserable, right? Another question is, what is the pot that you might be in, right? What's the, and when I say pot, it's just a what situation do you find yourself that you might find yourself in trouble, right? Like the crabs, when they find themselves in a boiling pot of water, they're in a lot of trouble, right? What are scenarios where we often find ourselves in where we're getting in trouble? Could be in a situation like at home, could be in a situation where we're hanging out with one particular friend, that we're hanging out with that one particular friend, and we tend to find ourselves either getting in trouble at home, or wherever we're hanging out with that person. So right now I want you to just think, what could be your situation, your pot that you tend to find yourself in. So think about that while we're thinking about this lesson, because we're going to talk about tools of how to get out of this pot successfully and onto more freedom, opportunities, and self-respect. Question I've got is, how do others affect you in both positive and negative ways? So think about think about somebody in your life that's really affected you in a very positive way, be it a family member, a friend, a teacher, somebody that's believed in you and was honest with you and helped you be a very good version of yourself, right? Then I want you to think about maybe some people that have affected you in a negative way. All right, maybe a friend that maybe you don't hang out with any longer because you didn't make great decisions when you were with that friend. Most of us have had people in our lives that have affected us in both positive and negative ways. Behavior tends to act like a magnet, where negative behavior tends to attract negative people, and positive behavior tends to attract positive people. And when you start getting in the habit of continuing to make really positive decisions, you tend to see that around you are really positive, supporting people that can help you reach whatever goals that you're really looking for. Okay. So I want you to be just aware that, yes, we've all got people in our lives that can affect us both positively and negatively, and make sure that you are able to clearly define that, to think about, maybe think about the three people that you hang out the most with. There's an old saying that you are who you're a combination of the three people you spend the most time with. Okay, so think about it. It might be three friends that you spend the most time with. It might be a family member and a couple of friends, but think about the three people you spend the most time with. Are they positive influences? Do they make good decisions? Do they make decisions that are kind of on that harder but worth it track? Or are we hanging out with people that might not be making good decisions? Maybe when we hang out with these people, we find ourselves typically getting in trouble. It's good to kind of reflect on that and start making a game plan of let's try to be spending a little less time, maybe a lot of less time, with people that we can truthfully say that, yeah, when I do spend time with this person, I tend not to make great decisions. One of the best ways to get out of the pot is to cut those people out of your life and replace them with more positive people. Why should you stay in the pot, or why should you get out of the pot? So there's really good, when I've talked to students in the past and I've asked them, why do you hang out with that person? I see that more often than not, when you guys hang out, you find yourself getting suspended. You find yourself getting grounded. So why don't we just stop hanging out with them? And students have been very honest with me, and they say, well, he's been my best friend since I was in second grade, or that's my cousin, their family. I can't stop hanging out with them. I think a lot of times peer pressure is a stronger influence than what we're willing to admit. That peer pressure, the desire to be accepted and the desire to have a group that we belong to is something that we all really want. And when you find that group that you belong to, it's really hard to to change groups, even if you know that it might not be the healthiest group for you to be in. I, I think that I understand that it's hard to make new friends and it's scary to do that. So when I ask people what's the reason for staying in the pot, I think that's an answer that I get frequently. But for every answer of staying in the pot, I think there's 10 more answers to why you should get out of the pot. We keep talking about the goals that you guys have in your lives, and the lofty goals of being very successful and being happy and having lots of freedom and opportunities for your life. Those things aren't found by staying in the pot for very long, right? What ends up happening for these crabs that stay in the pot too long, they die, right? What happens to people when they're staying in the pot and not getting away from these negative influences is we end up in we end up in situations that we never thought we could, and I think with these crabs, what happens when they're cooking, they don't notice that they're in a bad situation until it's too late. They don't notice that the water's going from a little bit room temperature to warmer to warmer to warmer, and before they know it, it's boiling water, and they try to escape, and it's too late. I think that we can look at that and think to ourselves that it's tough to realize you're in a bad situation until it's too late. And so it's really important that you have those people in your lives that are able to have those honest conversations with you. And it might not be very enjoyable conversations. It might be your parents telling you that, hey, I don't like it when you hang out with this person. I don't like the way that you treat me when you're hanging out with that person. Or a teacher that it's similar type of conversations. Those are not fun conversations to be had, but when you have positive people in your lives that are willing to be honest with you and let you know that hey, you're going down a path that I don't think is a very successful path, do not push those people away, because it's a lot easier for people to keep their mouth shut and not have those uncomfortable conversations than it is to risk an argument of telling you that they want you to get on a better track because they love you. Know this, that if you try to get out of the pot, you're going to be attacked. All right. And what I mean is that, again, misery loves company. If you find yourself in a group of people that and that especially if you've been in that group for a while, people that you hang out with, and you decide that, hey, this is not leading down the way that I want to live my life, and you decide I'm gonna go ahead and try to start climbing out of the pot, you're going to be trying to be pulled back. It might start with making fun of you. It might start making you feel like that you don't appreciate that group, and then they might try to make you feel like an outsider. Okay, so just know that if you are going to make that decision to start being on that harder but worth it track, know that it's going to be difficult, but knowing that in the beginning is good because you can prepare yourself, right? You can, like we talked about, our defense mechanisms, you can prepare those defense mechanisms to be set. And the closer you get out to getting out of the pot, the easier it will be to get out. Right? I fully believe that those first few decisions that you make of telling somebody that nope, that's not what I want to do. I want to start making better choices. Those first decisions will be more difficult, and the closer you get out to getting out of the pot, I think that those crabs that will be trying to pull you back down will go find easier prey. Okay. So just prepare yourself for that, but it's totally worth it. And lastly, just a couple of tools to help you climb out. So number one, what I would love for you to do is identify some positive friends. All right, identify somebody that's in your classroom, or in your neighborhood that we all know what it looks like when someone is making positive decisions, right? Find a way to have that person be your support person, all right? Because it's much easier to climb out of the pot when you got someone helping to pull you out. Obviously, you just avoid situations and people that you find yourself getting in trouble in. If you find yourself getting in trouble again with specifically this one person, it's time to stop hanging out with that person. It really is. Okay. If you find that when you go to the mall with this group that you guys tend to get in a little bit of trouble, again, just come up with excuses. I gotta babysit my little brother. My mom says I'm grounded. Come up with some excuses that will work, but really start doing yourself a favor by avoiding those situations where we can find ourselves getting in trouble. And then always remind yourself what you're working towards. All right, remember our goals. I ask you guys, write down your goals. Put them in your bedrooms. Put them in on the wall in your bedroom, or on tape them to your mirror. It's always a good reminder of why we are deciding to make these tough choices. Anyway, hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday. But please keep making good decisions. All right, see you.